Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Tuesday, April 13th, 2021. Today we'll be breaking down the Nhl Trade Deadline and Julian Edelman's retirement.
We got a big show today, everyone, so buckle up.
There goes that man's jockstrap. Oh my God, did you see that?
America's team? Yeah, right.
Oh, baby, it's a big day in sports.
There's nothing like battling it out with your teammates all season long to go win a championship.
Green Bay's got it this year.
Huge move for them. I think it's going to be a game changer.
We have a lot to talk about this busy week in the sports world. Welcome to the In a League of Their Own podcast.
Hey, man, how's it going today?
It's going wonderful. How about yourself?
Just great. I know you got a lot to break down today. Got some NHL trades to break down as well. We'll kind of get to that towards the middle or the end of the show as there's a lot to unpack there. So kind of kicking things off here with some NBA talk. Unfortunately, yesterday, Jamal Murray suffered a torn ACL and will miss the rest of the season. Kind of a picture right now for the Nuggets in the West. They currently sit at the number 4 spot. Do you think that they'll hang on with kind of the squad that they have built there and keep a playoff berth, or do you think they kind of skid as there's still a month left in the season? There's a lot of games to be played that they have a 5 or 6 game lead right now over 8th place, but a lot can happen in a month.
I think that they're going to hit a skid. Murray's definitely one of their main contributors as far as on the offensive and defensive end for the Nuggets. I feel like they're going to slide. I feel like they won't get out of that top 10 spot, though, so they will have a chance to battle through that last 4 to get into the playoffs. I'll see them probably sitting at the 8, 9, or 10 spot probably as the season concludes here, just because that is a big loss. He eats a lot of minutes for him.
Yeah, kind of sticking with that, like you said, 8, 9, 10. Even at that 10th spot, it still gives them a chance for the play-in tournament at the end of the year. Kind of sticking with the play-in tournament, there's kind of been some people who finally voiced their opinion. Specifically, some people on the Mavericks, Luka Doncic, had something to say about it, as well as owner Mark Cuban voiced his opinion, saying that the play-in tournament is a mistake, by his words. Do you think it's a good move for the NBA this year to have that play-in tournament, or do you think it needs to be restructured a little bit more to kind of the way Mark Cuban said it should just be 1 through 20, and then like 20 plays like 1 and stuff like that so it's a longer playoffs. So instead of having a play-in, these lower teams should just at least have a full series to play.
I mean, that's both. Cuban has an interesting point as well as I personally, as a fan of the sport, I kind of think that's interesting how they have that set up. Obviously, it's a little more unfair for the teams who do have that 10 spot compared to the 7 or 8 spot. So I could see that reason not being a good reason, since it's not fair like that way, where you're really only getting 1 game and you are playing a team that's better than you. So it's really who's the hottest that night. Like, you don't really get to see, like in football, for instance, any team can win any given Sunday, right? Well, if you're in a series, the better team's going to win 9 out of 10 times every single time throughout the collectiveness of the series, where 1 game, it's just a toss-up. That's why March Madness is so much fun to watch, and you have no idea who's going to win, is because of that. 1 game, anything can happen. So I do like what Cuban offered. I think that would be pretty neat, where you just do 1 play. Like, you could even, instead of doing it 1 through 20, you could still kind of do it the same way, but just do 1 versus 10, 2, 9, 3, 8, 4, 7, and then 5 play 6, and do it that way. So every team is at least getting a series. And then maybe to lessen the load, you do 3 best of 3 the first round, or a best of 5 the first round, and then you work your way into 7.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely it could be tweaked a little bit. We'll see kind of how it plays out this year. Again, where if you're in that 10 spot, you got to win 2 games just to be the 8 seed to play the 1 seed. So yeah, it'll be kind of interesting how that works out. But obviously, it's the first year that they're doing it, so they can't really elaborate on it too much yet. So once playoff times come, it'll be nice to see kind of a lower team, maybe that gets hot right at the end, that struggled maybe in the 13, 12, 14 spot all year, make a push to that 9 or 10 spot, and then make a second round or conference semifinals appearance in the playoffs. I feel like that'd be kind of cool to see, to give those lower teams a chance.
Yeah. What do you think about the Bucks right now? They've been hot as of late. They're only 3.5 out of first now in the East. We've talked about it multiple times, how it'd probably be better for them to not get that 1 seed. Do you think that they're going to end up getting that 1 seed?
I hope they don't. And I think that Philadelphia and the Nets are still like in a good spot, that they're not going to slip and the Bucks are going to leapfrog them by any means. Like 3.5 games is a short margin, given that there's a month of basketball left to play. So it's hard to tell. Like as a fan, it's always good to see your team at the 1 seed, but history has shown us the last 2 or 3 years when the Bucks are at the top of the East, they don't make it very far in the playoffs. So it'd be nice to see them play somebody a little more their speed, their caliber in the first round, instead of just 4-0ing or 4-1ing the lowest seed out of the East, and then getting hit in the mouth by a team second round that just played a better team than they played, so they're more set up to play the Bucks than the Bucks are to play that lower team. So yeah, I mean, I think they're in a good spot as long as they stay where they are. If they go up to the number 2 spot, it'd be better than the 3 spot, because then they wouldn't have to play whoever the 1 is until the 3rd round instead of the 2nd round. Because if they're the 3rd seed, I think that they'd have to play 1 if 1 wins out. So if I remember, like I'm trying to remember like how the bracket goes, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I like where they're at right now.
Yeah, if the season ended right now, we'd play the Hornets or the Celtics, as they both have the same record, basically. We're 4.5 games up on 4th place with the Hawks, so we've pretty much guaranteed ourselves a top 3 finish. Yeah, those other teams, it's a crapshoot who's going to be 4 through 8, as they're all within a game and a half of each other. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see. I know the Celtics over the weekend, I think they put a crazy run, and they ended up beating a team. It was like 40 something points.
Oh yeah, they beat it was like a 32-3 run to end the game or something.
Yeah, something like that. Ridiculous. That just shouldn't happen in professional basketball.
I think it was the Nuggets, actually. I want to say it was the Nuggets.
I think you're right.
Because I think it was like a couple days ago or whatever that happened. It said Nuggets aren't worried after a freak loss with a rough streak to end the game, and then the next day Jamal Murray tears his ACL. So the Nuggets are kind of in a rough spot right now after losing on a run like that, and then having your star guard go out.
And then just flipping over to the West really quick. As of right now, the Lakers are in the 5th spot. Do you think that they finish it in the top 4 or the bottom 4?
I think they stay in the top 4. I mean, especially now with the Nuggets. The Nuggets are in the 4th spot. I say they drop, and whoever's under them kind of works their way up. I mean, they're kind of holding their ground without AD and LeBron, which is good to see. Obviously, if they kind of if they like snowball down the rankings week after week with those two being out, I'd be a little worried. But they're kind of holding their ground. They're winning games they should. They're losing close games against really good teams and stuff like that. So yeah, so long as they keep doing what they're doing, whatever scheme they got going for them right now, it's working, to wait until they get their 2 stars back.
For sure. And then my last question to you about basketball here in the West. Steph Curry last night surpasses Wilt Chamberlain for the all-time leading scorer for the franchise of the Golden State Warriors. Shout out to Steph. They are currently in 10th place. Seems to be as they have caught a little bit of fire here. Do you think that they fight their way up? What position do you see them finishing the regular season, as they're in 10th right now?
I mean, they got a little bit of a hot streak going lately where it seems like they beat teams that they shouldn't, like the Bucks, for instance, but also Giannis sat out that game, so it is what it is. But yeah, they show glimpses of stardom, especially when Curry and Draymond Green are on the floor and they both put together a good game. But they also have a really young squad with James Wiseman being their first round pick last year. He's in contention for rookie of the year, so he's obviously a good addition to the team. But with a lot of these other teams that you have, like AD and LeBron, um, in LA, and you got Kawhi and PG with the Clippers. A lot of these teams are starting to get past that 2 stars on their team and closer to that 3 or 4 guys, kind of like the Nets have right now, that are the favorites to win a title this year. So I think that the Warriors need a little bit more from their younger guys and their bench if they're going to make a run. Honestly, surprised me. You said that they're sitting in 10th. I thought they were sitting like damn near at the bottom of the West right now. But I mean, if they can continue to play the way they are, I could see them moving up. I don't see them solidifying a spot like 7 or higher. So I definitely see if they do make it, they're going to be in that play-in tournament, either trying to secure the 1 seed or the 7 seed, or the 7 seed or the 8 seed, or they're going to lose out, whatever it might be, in the 9 and 10 matchup or whatever that looks like. So yeah, I mean, good for them to be in the spot that they're at, but I'm not going to hold my breath on them making a run if they do make it to the playoffs.
Agreed. Like, it's for all the success that they went through, the brief stint of time where they had the super team, best record in the NBA, the multiple titles. It's nice to see them kind of come back down to earth a little bit and not hit rock bottom. Like most franchises, after they lose a core group of guys like that all end up going to split, they fall to like last place in the league, and it takes a while where they got to get a guy, like you said, through the draft. Last year was a rough year with all their injuries, but the injuries beside, they've handled themselves very well, and they haven't completely fell off as a franchise where they're at least going to be relevant and make the postseason.
Yeah. But I mean, also when you have one of the best, or arguably the best shooter to ever go on the court in Steph Curry, you can never count that guy out to put up 40, 50, 60 points in a game. And if he can do that night after night after night, you're giving your squad a chance. But then on the flip side, when Curry was out, they're getting blown out like 130, 140 something to like 70s and 80s. They weren't even breaking 100. So there's too much inconsistency with that team right now, given that they're literally a week or 2 removed from looking like one of the worst teams in basketball. So they could go right back to that if Curry goes out again, or he has an off night, or whatever it might be. So there's just too much on Curry's shoulders that he can't do it all by himself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all I had for basketball today. I don't know if
Yeah.
you had anything else.
No, that's kind of all I had as well. Switch gears here quick to I'll just quick throw in our MLB minute here. Some brief MLB talk. So Olympic baseball qualifiers will take place in West Palm Beach, Florida, May 31st, June 5th. Yesterday, the Brewers put up 6 runs in the 6th inning to take down the Cubs 6-3. MLB ump Joe West is awarded $500,000 after a defamation lawsuit with All-Star catcher Paul LaDuca. Ducha. I'm not sure how you say that last name.
You said it right the first time, Paul LaDuca.
Duca. Okay. The Dodgers look to continue their hot streak as they have an 8-2 start to the season. They started a series tonight against the struggling 3-7 Rockies. The LA Angels also looking really well. Mike Trout is kind of living up to his hype of being MVP this season. They have started the year 7-3, and last night they put up 10 runs against the Royals, beating them 10-3. And lastly, the Timberwolves and Nets game that was postponed last night after that shooting occurred in Minnesota, that is slated that they're going to make that up this afternoon here.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the Dodgers multiple times when we've talked about the Brewers in contention from the NL, and I just don't see anybody that has the firepower to even compete with those guys. Like, it is impressive what they're doing year in, year out for, it seems, the last 5 years now. They've been right there, whether they've either blown it in the World Series or like last year, they finally put it together and got to win one. I see them being the new Yankees, Red Sox for a while.
Oh, for sure. Another team too I want to briefly mention, and there's been some hype around them, is the Phillies. Ever since Bryce Harper left, ever since they acquired Bryce Harper, they've been kind of lackluster. It's been kind of a wash, I guess, since he's got there, which is weird to say when you have a guy like that come onto your team. But this year, it seems like they're kind of figuring things out. Their current record, I had it up.
They're 6-3, I think.
6-3. That's what I thought they were. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's really early in the year. 10 games haven't even been played yet for them, but looks like they have some promise this year. And after kind of reading through an article of, are the Phillies the real deal this year? I mean, there's enough to go off of. They had some changes in management higher up and stuff, as far as coaching changes, restructuring the team, and kind of just developing a winning culture there. And to start this year, kind of looks like they have things figured out so far.
Yeah, another team that kind of has put their shit together that hasn't really been relevant for probably, I'd say, the last 8 to 10 years, the San Diego Padres. They're right behind the Dodgers in the West with 8-3, second best record in baseball. It's going to be fun to watch those teams battle all year long to see who's going to take the top of the West, because obviously whoever's that second spot is going to be the wild card.
Yeah. It's early in the year. A lot of baseball to be played yet. They'll kind of wait till after the All-Star break, and then we'll kind of figure out who's kind of the team that might run away with it this year.
Yeah, and the first month really doesn't mean anything in baseball. So this is all just hearsay and just early stats based upon the year. Normally takes about a month or so for guys to get their arms fully locked and loaded, guys back on the schedule of playing, because now they're back to 162 games. So it's a different schedule than what they had last year. That I think, what did they do? 80, 60?
Yeah, it was like half roughly.
Yeah. So obviously it's going to be way different this year with the travel, the fans back in the stadiums. It's going to take probably a month or maybe even 2 for teams to finally get in full swing.
For sure. Kind of switching gears here. What do you got for NFL news?
So for the NFL, big news, the biggest news that probably came out of the whole sports world yesterday, Julian Edelman has announced his retirement from the New England Patriots. Shout out to him for the great career that he's had. I mean, he's definitely kind of changed the way the wide receiver position is looked at, as far as needing a slot guy, one of those guys, smaller, fast guys who can run across the middle, kind of that type of thing, which Tyreek Hill is evolving even into another step of that just straight explosive speed. So shout out to him. It turns out he didn't want to retire, as all the speculation pointed to before, like we have stated on the show. It looked like he was going to sit out a few games, or play a few games and sit out maybe 1 or 2 and then continue to play. Turns out he failed the physical the NFL gives the players. So they had to terminate his contract yesterday, which ultimately is forcing him to step away from the game. Do you think he will end up being a Hall of Famer at some point?
I mean, it's kind of an interesting conversation with him. Like you said, he's kind of evolved the wide receiver position of that sub 6 foot guy that is a workhorse and one of your top 2 receivers on the team. So I mean, definitely props to him for kind of paving the way for some of these new receivers that are coming in, like Tyreek Hill, even like Scotty Miller on the Bucks as well. He's kind of in that same physicality and speed guy. I mean, it depends what you're going to base a Hall of Fame career off of. If it's solely based off Super Bowls, yes. Like statistics wise, like he had a good career, like slightly above average, but I wouldn't like they're not eye popping numbers to like
No,
look at.
yeah, for example, sorry to cut you off there. I just wanted to get, like, as you mentioned his stats here, how they weren't great. He only had 620 catches for 200 yards shy of 7,000 and 36 career touchdowns. So like you're saying, and you can go back and continue on that of how his stats just aren't up to par there. Just wanted to put those numbers in there while you were talking about the stats there.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, less than 7,000 yards. Usually that like 10,000 mark is kind of like, okay, this guy had a good career. And if he was like north of like 8,000, maybe it'd be like even 9,000. It's like, okay, he's close, but like 6,800 yards, it's like Alpha's just but also looking at the team he was on with the Patriots, where you had Rob Gronkowski, you had Randy Moss, you had Aaron Hernandez when he was still in his prime. You have a lot of good talent come in and out of New England while Julian Edelman was there. And props to him for not getting frustrated, for taking a back seat to some of these guys. Obviously, in the end, he got a handful of Super Bowls out of it. So, I mean, he's got to be happy with that. But, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he does get a Hall of Fame nomination or even becomes eligible for it. So I could see like down the road, I wouldn't say within like it'd probably be at least 10 years before he gets brought up in the conversation, mostly because they're kind of looking for people like back, like, okay, who was good 10, 20 years ago that like we could kind of throw into the equation. I could see him getting brought up then, but by no means is he a first ballot or even within the first 5 years Hall of Fame card nominee. So, I mean, just kind of off the bat, my initial instinct is no, I don't see him being in the Hall of Fame. But when I'm in my 40s and 50s, this year's Hall of Fame nominees, Julian Edelman, it's like, okay, fine. Like he finally got his time, but yeah, that's just kind of where I stand on it.
I agree. I don't think it'll be anytime soon. It'll be later down the road where people will bring up his name, as far as the fact of how far this position of slot wide receiver really is going to evolve into. Like, this could turn to be, especially the mold of like his size and all of that. Like, a lot of teams you're starting to see are gearing towards a little bit smaller guys who can just full out run. And it works. Like, and he was basically the first guy to do it, like, consistently. He was always that safety valve basically for Tom Brady. And that's why I feel like he doesn't have like he never was a home run hitting guy who's taking it for 80 yards for a touchdown. He was always the guy who was catching it on like 3rd and 8 for a first down. Like he got his ass beat for how many years. He battling through all those injuries and stuff, for him to continue to keep battling and playing. And like he even said in his video, is he was going to keep playing till the wheels fell off, and they've fallen off like completely. But
yeah,
shout out to him, dude. He's got, like you said, he's got a couple Super Bowls. He's got 2, I believe. Was he ever a Super Bowl MVP?
no, I don't think
No?
so. I think Tom Brady was MVP every year that Edelman was in the Super Bowl, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I don't think he ever got a Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, but the 2 Super Bowls, like you said, if that's what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame, then he'll be in the Hall of Fame. But I think it's going to take a little bit more than that, and it'll be about 10, 20 years.
Yeah, just because like the groundwork for a lot of quarterbacks is, did they win a Super Bowl? If they won a Super Bowl, usually that's kind of their into the Hall of Fame. Just because the the yards, the touchdown passes, all that kind of comes along with it because they're a quarterback. They're the heart of the offense. As a receiver, so like on every team, there's only one quarterback on the field. On for receivers, you got anywhere from like
4 to 6 probably.
4 to 6, even 8 guys on your squad that basically are suited up to play receiver. So that means you have to limit the the expectation or narrow the expectations of how to get into the Hall of Fame. You can't just let all these guys in that put up 5,000-6,000 yards and 20-30 touchdowns in their career. You have to kind of, like I said, kind of 10,000 is that benchmark for receiving yards. And even I think Jerry Rice was like 20,000 something, wasn't he? Like 22, 23,000.
Yeah, but then that's the whole thing with Edelman. That's the question mark is there never was really a slot receiver before him. Like he was like the first one who never did catch the deep balls, never did. He was always just the crossing route, the 3-4 yards. Like he never caught the ball. Like he never was running deep routes. He was like the first guy that never like did that, like for a whole entire career. Because like early in his career, like when he was healthy and young and whatever, it'd have been different if he was the guy on the outside running deep. But these cornerbacks and safe, they're 3, 4, 5 inches taller than him. Those are picks.
Yeah.
You know, he's not known for his jumping ability. He's known for his quickness and his toughness, basically. So
yeah,
that's the question mark.
But like you said too, kind of the evolution of after Julian Edelman, you have like Tyreek Hill, Scotty Miller now, who are just arguably top 5 fastest guys in the league right now. They can go on those deep balls because they don't need to jump up on a contested catch because the guy who's covering him is 5 yards behind him trying to catch up. So that's kind of cool to see that evolution now. It's kind of like Steph Curry kind of, where he's perfected his 3-point shooting from beyond the arc because he's a smaller guy. He stays away from the bigger guys in the paint. Kind of the same thing with these new smaller receivers. They know they can't go up on a contested catch with a D-back who's 6 inches taller than them. So they have to be faster than them and basically torch them and get a wide open uncontested catch. So it's kind of, it's don't, what's the saying? Don't work hard or something about not working harder, work smarter. Don't work harder.
Yep. That's the saying.
It's something along those lines. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah,
but
that's the saying. Don't work harder. Don't work harder, work smarter.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just a matter of, okay, I'm 5'8", but I can run a 4.3 40. So I'm just going to torch this guy and then go, I got good hands. So, yeah, it's like you said, Julian Edelman kind of paved the way and kind of put smaller slot guys on the map. So good for him in that case. And maybe that does put him in the Hall of Fame conversation because people kind of respect him for that and realize that he was kind of the first guy to do it. So they're like, oh, we got to give this guy the respect that he deserves, not because of his stats, but because of the way he changed the game. So if down the road, I feel like that's something that they look at 10 years down the road and realize kind of what he did for the game. And maybe that's what kind of puts him in the Hall of Fame conversation.
Yeah, the one person that I do compare him to as far as like getting to that Hall of Fame echelon is Tyler Lockett on the Seattle Seahawks, since they're both 5'10". And like Lockett's already has 5 more touchdowns already than Edelman and 2,000 yards less. So like it's hard to say, you know, it depends on your quarterback too and how you're used. Unfortunately, when you're getting into the Hall of Fame, I don't think they bend all the rules for every single person that gets in there. It's pretty like straightforward. Like I feel like it's based on stats and how you are as a person, plus with the Super Bowls. I feel like the Super Bowls is like the icing on the top of how high in the Hall of Fame you're going to be, where your stats is what you're going to have to. First, you're going to have to be a good person to even be honored, to even be selected. And then your stats got to back that up. And then with your stats backing that up, you got to be a winner.
which is kind of a mark on Julian Edelman's record. Didn't he have drug like violations or like enhancements?
Could have been.
I want to say he did. I'm gonna quick pull it up just to make sure. But yeah, I think it was kind of early. It was earlier.
Yeah, PEDs. Yep.
Okay. I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but I remember. I think he served a suspension. I think he had like a 2
First
or 4 game.
4.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah. That's kind of the NFL is like less. I mean, like the MLB, like Barry Bonds, how he's not a Hall of Famer because of his use of steroids and stuff like that, where you can't win MVP and stuff like that. But then like Julian Edelman, he's been a Super Bowl champion and this and that, and been able to play, even though he's been caught with PEDs and served suspension because of that. So I don't know if that really tarnishes his Hall of Fame resume. I mean, I would definitely say it does, but because he's kind of on that, we're talking about him kind of on the fence of whether he should be in or not. So that definitely leans him to being not in the Hall of Fame for that reason.
Yeah, dude. And looking back on it, Edelman, he was 2019 Super Bowl MVP when the Pats beat the Rams 13-3.
Oh,
He had 10 catches, 8 were for first downs, 6 were for 10 yards or more. He had a big catch on the game-winning drive as well. Yeah, and that was the same season where he started with the first 4 being suspended for PED use. So he goes from being suspended for PEDs to the Super Bowl MVP.
that's funny how the NFL
Only
works
league,
like that.
only league that would ever happen.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Still good for him. He had a great career, and we'll see down the road if it was Hall of Fame worthy or not.
Yeah.
I guess kind of sticking with a tangent off of Julian Edelman, his old friend Tom Brady down in Tampa Bay. Last week we talked about the Cincinnati Bengals releasing vet running back Giovanni Bernard. Tampa Bay Bucks got those deep pockets, somehow keeping guys and keep signing more guys. They go out and pick up Giovanni Bernard on a 1-year deal. Didn't see any numbers as far as how much they're giving him. It just says they signed him to a 1-year deal. So good for him to find a team, to land on a team being kind of an older guy. Obviously he's going to be kind of the number 3 situational kind of back, or if Fournette and Jones are gassed or one of them gets injured in a game, then he'd see more play time. But also Bruce Arians did come out and say he's not saying who the number 1 running back is going to be between Fournette and Jones. So maybe Bernard throws his hat into the equation too, and he has a really good training camp and OTAs and stuff like that to kind of prove his worth. So
I could see the Bucks doing kind of what the 49ers did when they made it to the 3-headed monster, where you got 3 guys and you just rotate them through. So that's more guys that are fresh. Tom Brady can just turn and hand the ball off, so you're avoiding his hits early in the season. He is that play action type of guy who can still fucking throw the ball deep, loves taking those deep shots when the opportunity presents itself. That's not what he's looking for. He's more of like the game manager type, but yeah, with the 3 running back style, that opens up the tight ends more. That opens up the wide receivers that they got. Smart move for the Bucks, and yet again, they continue to shove it in everyone's face, saying we're going for 2. Did you mention Thaddeus Moss to Cincinnati?
No, I didn't.
That happened though, right?
Yeah. They just signed him yesterday as well.
What do you think about that? Them kind of basically trying to reassemble the LSU team in Cincinnati. It seems like what they're trying to do for Joey B.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good move for a young quarterback. And like, obviously, it's a very rare case where you can have a guy have now a second guy that he used to play with and kind
And
of
the third this year with Javar Chase is looking like that's where he's going to go as well.
Yeah. So if they can kind of put together him with his old receiving core, that's really good for a young quarterback. That familiarity, that chemistry that they had for 4 years at LSU, to bring that to the NFL. Obviously, you have to adapt it because it's a step up from college, but still, they're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of some of these other young quarterbacks that are trying to learn the system with um, young receivers from different colleges and old receivers that have been in the league for years, and that's all kind of trying to mesh and work together as one unit. He can go out there and say, all right, like he just kind of gives his boy the nod, and they know what to do. So yeah, good move for the Bengals. I've been kind of on the fence with them this year as far as if they're going to be relevant. And I mean, this offseason, they kind of made some moves that have been impressive. And we'll kind of see with the draft if they do go out and get Jamar Chase and reestablish that LSU team there. I think the Bengals could improve their rankings and potentially be close to a playoff team. I'm not going to say that they're going to be one, but they keep on this trend, they could be close this year.
Yeah, because they're in a tough division.
Oh yeah, when you're in the AFC North and you got the Steelers, Ravens, and
Colts. Right?
Browns. Yeah, Steelers,
Yeah,
Ravens, Browns.
Browns.
All three of which were playoff teams this past year. I don't think there's ever been 4 teams that have made the playoffs out of one division before. So you got
Is that even possible?
Yeah, now it is, because you have your division winner now that they moved it from 6 to 7.
8. Did they go to 8 teams?
7, because the 1 seed gets the only bye. So you have an extra wild card now. So you could have all 3 wild cards come out of one division, technically. But the fact that they all play each other,
Well, 2 would play each other and 1 would play a different team.
Well, no,
So
I'm just saying in the regular season, how you have 6 games all against each other. Unless you split 3, you'd have to all split
2,
3.
Yeah, you'd have to go 1-1 against every single one
to make it that close to even have that be a chance. So I think it'd be really cool to see. I don't think it'd be the AFC North that's going to do it. I definitely think like the NFC West would be the first team or the first division that would be able to do that, given the firepower. And if all 4 teams are healthy out of the West, they're all playoff contenders. So, so yeah, that'd be kind of cool to see it. Never even thought of that happening, but who knows?
Yeah, and then the last thing I kind of had here on the NFL is its current ongoing battle with former players, current player, and their wives dealing with systemic racism in the NFL, and how when the NFL came out last year and donated $250 million to equality and all of that, a lot of these people are saying how that is complete bullshit, because they made themselves look good in the public, and then behind closed doors, they continue to keep pushing the agenda even further. There's a handful of former players who've came out, as well as lawyers who have represented some of these athletes, basically just stating how, as far as taking care of athletes, health-wise, contracts, all that type of stuff, it turns out that there's 2 different types of tests, one that is designed for Black players and one that is designed for white players. And when in turn, the NFL is approximately 70% Black. So this whole thing is basically what is being claimed is a lower score for Black players is being occurred on these tests in order to reject claims, like to either not pay them, reduce payments, thus saving the NFL hundreds of millions and possibly billions of dollars as far as taking care of their players. And we've talked about this multiple times, how the NFL is kind of their own government and continues to do what they do. Obviously, it's sad to see that this is continuing to come out in the public, but I'm glad this is. The NFL needs to be held accountable for what they're doing to some of these players. And then you have certain players I know even one that kind of touched home when reading this story is Najee Davenport, who played for the Green Bay Packers, talks about how he was even redlined and wasn't allowed to get house loans for certain neighborhoods in certain areas and stuff like that. And it's just like, that's really sad when you have such a multi-billion-dollar industry and you treat these people like dirt. Like, that is so fucking sad to see. Like, and the more that keeps coming out on all this stuff with the NFL, I mean, hopefully you do see maybe a change in the, maybe Goodell needs to step aside and somebody needs to come in who's going to change shit. Like, it needs to be changed.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's like you said, because they're a multi-billion-dollar company. To like you said too, I think they donated some like money and like efforts towards systemic racism and social injustice to try to make these things stop, only to find out that that's all kind of a publicity stunt, and it's yeah, it's just a publicity stunt, and then behind closed doors they are doing the exact opposite. And there's players that are coming out finally and saying, hey, the NFL messed up, and they're doing things to like you said, redline us and not give us proper housing and proper treatment. Obviously this Najee Davenport's case is years ago, but still I'm sure it's happening today. But hopefully this kind of opens up, and where current players are saying, yeah, I can relate to this, this is happening now. And hopefully change happens. Whether the NFL is going to act on it or just slide some stacks under the table and tell people to keep hush about it. That kind of seems like what they do anytime they're faced with adversity or some kind of problem that might kind of deface the NFL.
Yeah, and hopefully that really stops a call for action to all the money being sent underneath the table to all these organizations and stuff to keep everything running the way that it is, where people start saying, no, that's not enough. Like, your offer is not enough for what I've done for your industry. Like, the main story that I was reading out of this was a former guy who played for the Washington football team. He was in 2 Super Bowls, and then now he's starting to have onset early things with CTE, not knowing where he is, stuff like that. And his wife is one of the, like, his main spokesperson, because clearly he's starting to lose it and doesn't really, and she says that there's so many like wives of NFL players who are on the front lines of this fight because these football players are getting so banged up and their heads are so messed up that sometimes they just forget, or they just don't even realize what's happening. Where these wives who, thank God, are there supporting these players and there to step up and say, hey, like, that's not right. Like, you can't continue to keep doing this to all of us, like, especially when the stat, like, 70% of the NFL is ran by the black players. And now you're starting to see a lot of black coaches start moving up into the ranks, and a lot of, I mean, they deserve equally what is theirs. And I really hope that this battle doesn't continue to stop until it is.
For sure. I mean, like you said, it's a staggering number to have 70% of the NFL be black players, and yet in this organization they're the majority, but they're still being treated like a minority. So obviously the script needs to be flipped on that. The NFL has the firepower, the money, the influence, the mind, like the right people to get it done. Be the first to start the change, and then you start to see other industries like the MLB, the NBA, they kind of follow suit with any issues they have. Somebody's got to step up and be the first one to do it. Yeah, but it's not always cool to be the one guy to step up to a bully or an issue or whatever to face it. somebody's got to do it though, and it's people's lives at stake, it's people's mental health at stake. It's a lot of things kind of snowballing into one time that where people are using their social platforms and their backgrounds and what they've done to finally bring awareness to it, and we finally get to educate ourselves on it. But the next step after educating ourselves on it is to invoke change. So
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, with the NFL hopefully being first, I mean, the NHL was technically the first one to really do something about it. Unfortunately, since there's not much eyes on the NHL, that no one probably even heard about this, but they started a thing. It's called the Hockey Diversity Alliance, which was formed by 7 current and former NHL players, all of which who are African American descent. They basically it started basically kind of when the whole rest of the initiative started, when George Floyd was killed last year. They basically came out saying some of the stories and stuff that they've experienced, with coaches calling them names, other players, stuff like that. And they really just started an alliance with the NHL. Like, the NHL did partner with them on this to stop all of the bullshit. Like, everybody's a professional athlete. Everybody deserves to be treated with respect, no matter what your skin color is. And the NHL creating this Hockey Diversity Alliance hopefully is continuing to get more players of color and other ethnicities to want to play the game and come over here and play, knowing that they're in a safe space where they won't have to deal with that sort of mockery, because it's not tolerated. Like, even fans who want to say that type of stuff, like, you're making such an ass of yourself and for the sports organization that you support, rather than hurting the other person. Like, you're just making yourself and who you support basically look like complete dog shit. So glad to see the NHL was really the first one to go out and do this. You have a lot of huge players who stepped in from the, like, all over the board. Crosby, you got PK Subban, Leon Draisaitl, one of the greatest goal scorers today's game. Like, you have a lot of players from both sides who are fully in support of this, and that's what you need. So hopefully the NFL can come up with some sort of maybe organization or some sort of diversity thing where they can really get the ball rolling on tackling these issues, instead of just sliding them under the rug and hoping people forget about it and just keep pumping the money out in the public saying, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, and really not changing anything.
Yeah, and kind of one more thing to add with the whole like diversity thing too is with COVID and stuff, there's been a lot of like hate crimes and slander against the Asian community. Like, Jeremy Lin had things said about him. He's with the Warriors G League team, and then Young Ho Koo, kicker for the Atlanta Falcons as well, also an Asian American. Both have come out and said that they've got a lot of slander and hate speech in regards to like the coronavirus and them being the issue for it and stuff like that. So it goes beyond the Black community. There's a lot of people who are affected by it. So yeah, like you said, hopefully this change that happens, but there's a lot of people that it's affecting, and it's a short window to make change before people start to force the change themselves, and you start to see that's where you saw like the riots and stuff like that happening. Like, it's all just kind of a buildup of, oh yeah, we'll change it, and then nothing happens. You can only do that so many times before people hit their breaking point. And on the other side of being a year away from George Floyd's death and Breonna Taylor and the other unfortunate events that happened in the last year or two, you can only blow smoke so much before people start to realize, hey, change isn't happening, and they're going to try to go do it themselves.
Yeah, like we said, we need people, strong people, to stand up and start doing this, and the players need to come together and get on the same page with things. I feel like that's everybody sits back and points the finger, and it's like, oh, it's the owners. It's like, well, if it's the owners, the players come together. There's more of you than there are them. Make a point. Take a knee. Do something. Like make a point. And yeah, I mean, we could go all day on going into that, but it's just we'll continue to touch on that as news continues to develop around what's going on with that. But yeah, it's just disgusting to see people being treated that way here in the United States and all over the world. It's just disgusting for people to think that they can treat other people like that.
Yeah. Kind of finishing up with some NFL points here. Just two more signings I want to make mention of. Kind of a cool move for the Washington football team. They signed former D1 basketball player Samus Reyes to tight end position. Kind of cool to see that crossover. He's been in an academy learning football moves and just like the fundamentals of football and stuff like that. And Washington went out and signed him. They obviously saw good things about him. So cool to see them make a move like that. I know one person that comes to mind too, which it ended up working out for him, at least on the football side, is Draymond Green. How he was a a basketball star at Michigan State. He tried out spring football for the football team and just did not look good. You could tell he's not a football player. So it's cool to see somebody kind of that dual threat where a massive stud on the basketball court and taking his talents to the NFL now. So hopefully things work out for him there. And then one more signing to mention is Arizona Cardinals signed James Conner. So good move for them. I know since they got rid of Kenyon Drake, Chase Edmonds has kind of been their number one go-to guy. So James Conner shown a lot of potential when he was on the Steelers. Kind of after Le'Veon Bell left, he stepped in and didn't really miss a beat. He was a good workhorse for them. So kind of have your 1-2 punch now in Arizona with Edmonds and Conner. So good for them.
Yeah, good for them. And like you said about these dual athletes, you're starting to see a lot more of that now. Like Dion, he played both. Like Russell Wilson, he got drafted in the MLB. Kyler Murray drafted the MLB. There's another one. Was it Tua who was drafted in the MLB as well? There's a lot of quarterbacks who get drafted in the MLB. Same as like tight ends in basketball. Like a lot of tight ends are former standout basketball players. The jumping, the body movement, the kind of like posting up a guy down low in the paint. It's kind of that same body movement when you're trying to position yourself to catch a ball, creating that separation, that space to let your arms to catch the ball. So yeah, like you said, it's good to see, and hopefully a lot more dual athletes start coming out where it starts to create a little bit more hype as far as, oh, what sport is he going to pick? Which one, all that, because that's just going to make things a lot more interesting across the sports world when you have a guy who you think's a Sherlock number one pick in the NFL draft, and he goes, nah, I'm going to go play baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that just throws a huge wrench in everything. So yeah, it's going to be cool to see. Like I said, these athletes keep getting bigger, faster, stronger. Seems like every single year. And like I kind of looping back to where we were about the slot position with Edelman and like how Tyreek Hill kind of was like that next DK Metcalf is like the package of the slot guy and the outside guy, the big guy who can still run super fast. I feel like you're going to start to see a lot more specimen like him out there. The super track, basically all-stars, but who are bodybuilders that can go out there and just, because I still think that play was one of the most incredible plays I've ever seen when he caught that guy, when he ran him down.
Oh, Buda Baker.
Yeah, like I've never seen somebody want to catch somebody that bad.
Yeah, it's impressive. It goes to show that if he could catch that D-back, that means that if it was him with the ball, he wasn't getting caught. So,
No chance.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's amazing to see these bigger, faster, stronger guys, and still being effective. Like as good as they are, it's scary to be a young athlete coming into these professional leagues nowadays, because it's like if you're not that same caliber, if you're not that same size, same speed, good luck. Like if you made it that far, good luck. Yeah, that's kind of all I had today. I know kind of wrap things up on your end here with some NHL trade deadlines, unless you had a couple other points you want to touch on before that.
No, I think that's all I had about that. We can dive right into the NHL trades here. There has been a lot of movement here, and so I'm not going to touch in detail on every single trade that had happened, but I am going to go back to April 2nd, where I think one of the first big moves of the trades sort of happened. That was the Chicago Blackhawks acquiring Vinnie Genestroza from the Florida Panthers. That was a great move for the Hawks, getting a goal scorer and a guy who can kind of fit their new mold of the fast, speedy type of guys. So that was a great pickup for them. Another steal, the New York Islanders get Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac from the New Jersey Devils. The Devils are kind of out of the playoff hunt at this point, so they just unloaded two of their veteran guys to try to go get them a cup to the New York Islanders, who are, I believe they are sitting atop of the standings currently. Nope, I take that back. Well, they're tied. So them and the Capitals are tied atop of the East, and the Islanders have just made some big moves there. Another huge move for Chicago. They got Brett Conley from the Florida Panthers. Them doing business with Florida seems to be one of their hot spots to go. There were some other players exchanged in that deal as well, who I don't really need to touch on. Colorado Avalanche on April 10th get backup, starting goaltender Devin Dubnyk from the Sharks in exchange for a defenseman and a 5th-round pick. That is a huge move for the Sharks. They kind of had some question marks around who's their starting goalie. I know Jones has done very well for them recently, but it never hurts to have a 1-2 punch in the NHL, especially the season, how it's condensed. You need a good backup to go 1-2, 1-2 all season long, and whoever's the hot guy is going to get it in the playoff time. Florida Panthers as well, who's in the hunt for the playoffs. They get Buffalo Sabres defenseman Brandon Montour. He's one of their top defensemen, so it's good to see him get out of the dumpster fire of what is Buffalo this season and potentially battle for a Stanley Cup if they can end up making the playoffs there. Tampa Bay Lightning, Stanley Cup champions from last year, added a steal, David Savard from the Columbus Blue Jackets. Huge deal for them. Their back end has been there. I know they have one of the best defensemen in the league in Victor Hedman. It's just crazy to see how they go and they log up on another huge veteran who can log a lot of minutes. He's the physical type of guy, just the type of guy you need when you're going into the playoffs to give your team some boosts, saying, hey, we got another guy who's here to battle. I could definitely see them going on another run. The Toronto Maple Leafs, they got Nick Foligno, former captain for the Columbus Blue Jackets. That I didn't see that coming. Toronto is just going all in this year on winning the Stanley Cup for all their first round battles that they've had and finishing on the losing side, with Austin Matthews leading the league in goals at this point. The young guys that they have on their team right now are just in full swing. Like, they're at the top of their game. So bringing in another experienced guy, especially who has, like, I want to say now that he's the 4th player on their team now who's been a captain for another franchise. So, like, they've got the experience. They finally put all the main pieces together to say, we got a leader on every single line now who's been a captain somewhere, where that ship ain't going to rock. Like, the boat's not going to rock too much. We're going to keep things steady, and hopefully that they can make a run this year, because it'd be cool to see them get out of that slump. Boston Bruins, they got a defenseman, Mike Riley from Ottawa Senators. That helps the Bees. I know they've been kind of on a slump as of late. Hopefully that continues, being a Flyers fan, so that maybe we can hop them for that 4th spot. But Boston is Boston. They battle every single year, and you want them to die, and they just never die. Like they've made like a handful of great moves, like as well as bringing in Mike Riley, Taylor Hall, former league MVP, and Curtis Lazar from Buffalo Sabres in that dumpster fire over there. They're going to get a chance to potentially battle for the Stanley Cup, which is great for them. The Pittsburgh Penguins get my boy Jeff Carter from the Kings for conditional picks in 2022 and 23. Hate to see it that my favorite player now plays for the arch enemy of my team, but good for him. I mean, he's already got a couple Stanley Cups with the Kings. Would be a nice ride off into the sunset, getting one more Stanley Cup with Sidney Crosby. That'd be the way to ride off into the sunset, playing with one of the greatest players to play the game of all time. Not too much else, like crazy trades. Capitals get Anthony Mantha from the Red Wings. I have no idea how the Red Wings got this deal to go through, but they got a guy who is kind of on the end of his career for two veterans and a first round pick for this year and second round pick there. So it just shows the Capitals are kind of all in at this point. Clearly they think that Mantha is going to do something great for him. So hopefully it works out for him. Another Capitals acquisition, they get Michael Raffle from my Flyers in exchange for a 5th round pick. No idea why the Flyers would get rid of a great player for just a 5th round pick. So it's kind of sad to see, but good for the Capitals. I mean, we wish them the best. I don't know the exact number, but I want to say the last 7 or 8 guys we've gotten rid of have gone to win Stanley Cups at the teams that they've gone to. So go win a cup, Raffle. I mean, thank you for what you've done for Philly. Same with Eric Gustafsson, who got traded as well yesterday, defenseman. We sent him to Montreal. They're looking good. He's going to help them on their back end. So that's kind of all the major trades that really happened over the past month. I got a few questions for you here. Capitals sitting top of the East right now. Do you think with what they did yesterday and over the past month is going to keep them in first place heading into the playoffs, or do you think the Islanders or the Pens are going to catch them and pass?
I mean, being that the Capitals are kind of my go-to team the last like really 4 or 5 years, it's kind of been the team I followed the most. It was great to see them go win a cup a couple years back. So given that they have some vets on that team that have that experience, it'd be nice to see them make another run that they have that they did in years past. So I mean, as a fan of the Caps, I'd like to see it, although like you said, if with the Penguins making some moves, kind of they're always in contention when you got Crosby on your team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that division come the end here in just a few weeks, with only really about a dozen games left in the year. So yeah, it's kind of a whole new ball game once the playoffs come. It's a whole new it's a new it's a new game every night. Like whereas in like the NBA, you start to see if a team gets out to a 1-0 or 2-0 lead, it's just like, okay, you can kind of see the trend it's going. In the NHL, you see a lot of flipping. You see a lot of series go one way or the other, and then halfway through flip and the other team goes on a hot streak. Whether goalie's on fire or the goalie's shit in the bed, it's it always what it kind of comes down to when it comes playoff time. So yeah, just kind of as a fan of the Caps, it'd be nice to see them stay at the top, but after the Penguins made some moves, I wouldn't be surprised if they make another run for the cup.
Yeah, good points. I couldn't agree with you more. Currently, I think the team that had like won the deadline yesterday, I'd have to say is Boston, Pittsburgh, and the Islanders all went and got guys who have the experience to win a Stanley Cup. So I feel like those, and then the teams who I feel like lost Capitals, I feel like lost pretty hard on that Mantha trade. I mean, I'm not in the front office, so clearly they could be knowing what they're doing, but I just feel like they totally got fleeced out of that deal for Mantha. And then one of the biggest moves was Jeff Carter, who's kind of a few years back, he had like his all-time like most goals in a season. The Kings kind of been struggling down there. He's only got, I think, 20 points this season so far. So hopefully him getting to play on the Penguins now gives him a little bit more juice. And like I said, I'd love to see my favorite player win one more Stanley Cup, even though it's for the rivals. I'd love to see him win one more Stanley Cup before he hangs it up. Second question I got for you. Connor McDavid sitting atop of the NHL in points with 69 with 11 or so games to go. Do you think that he will surpass the 80-point mark?
Oh, easily. I mean, with you said 11 games to go, he's got to put up 2 points a game to kind of surpass that mark. Obviously a great goal scorer, and he's got a amazing eye for the ice to find open guys to rack up assists as well. So, yeah, I don't see him having a problem racking up 11 more points in the last 11 games, 10 games.
10 games, yep.
So, yeah, he's got to get at least 1 point a game and then get 2 points in one to surpass that mark. Obviously, having another amazing year, I don't see that being an issue for him.
And then sticking with the Edmonton Oilers here, Leon Draisaitl, teammate of Connor McDavid, currently sits at 61 points, 8 behind McDavid. Do you think both of them can hit 150 points total in tandem on the year when they're at 130 right now? So 20 points collectively in the last 10 games.
I mean, I don't see why not. Like talking about McDavid, kind of where if he doesn't pick up the slack, I think they can easily both hit that 150 mark together. It's been kind of crazy to see arguably two of the best guys in the league this season on the same team putting up that amount of points together. Usually you see one guy doing it, and then maybe in the opposite conference you have another guy kind of matching it. It's like, oh, who's going to do it? But it's like you see two guys having MVP caliber seasons on the same team. So yeah, I think it'd be really cool. I don't know when the last time that happened, that a combined two guys put up 150 points on the same team. At least I don't. For as long as I followed hockey, I've never seen it done. At least, so it'd be kind of cool to see that happen this year.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very rare to see two guys on the same team be number one and number two in points. I mean, you see that in junior hockey quite a bit, where you just have teams that are just running away with it. You have like a handful of guys from a team that's on the top, but like the Oilers, they're like in third place in their division, so they're middle of the pack, and those two are running away with the points. I mean, next closest is Patrick Kane, who's 7 behind Draisaitl for the second spot. That's a lot of points when it comes to hockey. Last question here for hockey that I got for you. Austin Matthews right now, the young gun from America, he's currently sitting at 32 goals. Do you think he passes the 40 goal mark, which is very impressive to do in an NHL season, especially a shortened season?
How many games do they have left?
Toronto, they have 10 left as well.
Yeah, I mean, with kind of the run Campbell's had, I feel like his energy and his star power is just kind of fed that Toronto Maple Leafs team, kind of giving them the boost that they need, kind of getting to the end of the season here. Kind of like how you mentioned before with their slump of not being able to get out of the first round. It'd be great to see them do that this year. So yeah, to kind of go back to your question, I could definitely see Matthews feeding off of Campbell's energy. Your team kind of runs through your goalie. If he's having a shit night, it's just kind of it brings everybody down. But if he's on fire, Austin Matthews is going to come out and match that as well. So last 10 games here, 8 goals. It's not an easy task to basically score a goal a game. But I definitely could see him doing it so long as Campbell keeps that same energy every night for the Leafs.
Yeah, like you mentioned, having a goalie who's in the game is one of the backbones that every team needs. I can't tell you. I just remember one quick story here about a goalie just completely shitting the bed at Nationals. First game, we played a team who had 6 D1 commits on their team, like their first 2 full lines of forwards. First 5 shots of the game, 4 goals went in. We were down 4-0, 3 minutes like into the game. It's over. Like you go down that early, that fast, it's game over. Obviously you go to your backup goalie and you try to muster that energy of the change to try to turn the tides a little bit. I want to say the final score of that game, I think it was 8-2. And then we ended up setting a record for the most penalty minutes ever in a game. I think we crossed the 200 PIM mark in one game from our team. Yeah, it got out of hand really quick. Just like it happens when the games are like that, when the scores are blowouts like that, you got guys taking little extra runs at guys, cheap shot, like games get on hand very quick in hockey, especially when when you're about that 4-goal lead mark, you're looking for a shit show. Like you're looking for fights to start, penalties to start. It being a player, you love to be in those games. Especially when you're on the winning side. Being on the losing side is especially rough when you're getting your ass kicked all over the ice, and no matter what you have to say, isn't changing anything. So that's kind of all I had on the NHL. With teams basically having 10 games to go right now, I'd say a couple teams to watch making some deep playoff runs. Toronto, with the acquisition of the vets that they just brought in, is absolutely massive to what they did for their organization. Colorado Avalanche, don't sleep on them. They are rolling right now. They're currently on a 3-game win streak. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. They're on fire right now. They can't seem to be stopped. McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar are all lighting it up. It's good to see a team full of young studs who all are still tied into their contracts for years to come, all being on the same team. It's good to see dynasties, like maybe this will be the next Red Wings dynasty to start. People, no matter what sport it is, love to see greatness, whether it's an athlete, a team, you name it. People love to see first, like how everybody's pumped for Matsuyama for winning the Masters. Everybody loves to see it first. So I'd love to see the Avs get it done. I know my Flyers are pretty much out of it, so I'm kind of done talking about them. I don't really want to jinx them anymore. I feel like ever since I started talking about them, they kind of hit a shit skid. So I'm just done talking about the Flyers till the rest of the year. All I can say is we should probably get rid of Chuck Fletcher, our GM. He's made some shitty moves and hasn't really. It seems like we've always been sellers at the deadline for the last however many years, just getting rid of guys who go win cups. So Chuck Fletcher, you did great for the organization of Philly. You got us to a Stanley Cup final when we lost against the Hawks, but it's time to go, man. We need to start making moves. And I guess one more question for you before we wrap it up. Who do you think is going to win the Stanley Cup this year?
Kind of the dark horse team. We were just talking about the tandem up in Edmonton. I think the Oilers are going to be that dark horse team this year. That you got Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby. Like those are 2 household names that once they're in the playoffs, you got to keep an eye on them, whether they're a number 1 seed or they're the lowest seed. Doesn't matter. You got to watch out for them. So the Oilers are definitely going to be a team I'm going to keep an eye on, especially kind of like you said, flying under the radar up in the Scotia North Division. So, that's kind of my go-to team right now. Obviously, being a Caps fan, I hope they get it done. But like you said, they gave up a lot to get a little for the trade. So, see how it works out for them. See if they can get a good team mesh with the guys that they did acquire in the last dozen or 10, 12 games here of the season, and we'll see from there. But yeah, Oilers are kind of gonna be my favorite team going into the playoffs here.
Yeah, and then one more quick stat I have. Just looking at some of the teams who are leading the league in goals scored, Colorado, 52. They have a 52 goal differential scored compared to what they've given up, which is a top of the NHL. And the next closest is Tampa with 40. And then the next closest after that drops down all the way to 32. So it kind of shows that there's pretty much two teams that are on a collision course to meet in the finals with all their offensive power that they have, because the NHL is turning into that offensive game where, like you just mentioned, the Oilers, they're always a blast to watch on television because you have Draisaitl, McDavid, who are just two guys who every time they touch the puck can make a crazy play happen. That's like same with Crosby. Like Ovechkin isn't so much more of like the game changer type where he's in his one spot and he pipes it home every time. Like people just know what he's going to do and you can't stop it, where these other guys have bigger roles, I should say. Like Ovechkin's more looked for as being a scorer than Crosby. He's like more of like a defensive center who takes high priority of winning the face-off, being in position in the defensive zone. Earlier in his career, I could say you could see him taking a little bit more chances on offense, trying to get involved, but he knows how much defense plays a part in winning. And when your team gets hot like they are right now, and they just added a goal scorer, another guy who can get hot, and Jeff Carter, like they could be off to the races. Like now is not a time to struggle if you're in the NHL. With 10 games to go and you're about to go into some fierce competition, now's not the time to hit a little skid. Now's the time to step on the gas and accelerate your lead, accelerate your dominance, start putting like, and I know my Flyers play your Capitals here like 5 times. I think it is 4 times in the last 10 games or whatever. So you're going to see some battles. You're going to see some battles out there because teams know, especially teams who are on the outside looking in at this point, every game is one step closer to getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why hopefully me done talking about my Flyers can help them out here, catch Boston in that last spot. I know the Rangers are on fire as well, who seem to have the Flyers number all year long, and we got to play them at least one more time. So yeah, that's kind of all I have for today. I mean, I don't have really. You got anything else?
No, just to kind of, I guess, turn the table on that last question you asked me. With you said kind of you're kind of that light at the end of the tunnel for the Flyers is getting smaller and smaller every day. Tonight might be kind of the closing of this season for them if they can't get it done against the Caps. Who's your go-to team for the come Stanley Cup playoff time that you're going to be keeping an eye on?
Well, there's
I know you said the Avalanche, but they're kind of
like
high flyers.
There's like 3 teams that I've been watching all season long who have really changed how I look at them. Like the Florida Panthers, that's one team I've started to fall in love with. They have a guy who's currently got the Iron Man streak for the most consecutive games played in a row, Keith Yandel. Shout out to you. They've been rolling, and especially for a team who doesn't. For people who don't watch NHL games, the Florida Panthers, they get the least amount of fans at their game all the time because they're in Florida, sunny place. They're kind of outside the city. Stadium's kind of like in the middle of nowhere, and there's stuff to do all day in Florida when there's nice weather. So people don't really want to go sit at the games, that type of stuff. For the fans that you're starting to see start to come to these games now that this team has finally turned things around and they have phenomenal players on their team. I mean, it was sad to see them lose their top defenseman. I know we brought that up when Chase Drake was on. Aaron Ekblad going down with his knee injury. He was on pace to win the Norris. He was having his best season that he was having so far. So it's even with them losing him, they're still on a roll and they're still holding that playoff spot. So I could see the Panthers potentially making a deep run. Another team who kind of is in the shadows a little bit, the Vegas Golden Knights. I know in the West, it's all about Colorado. they get all the attention. Vegas still being that newer team, only a few years into it, they've seemed to be there every single year, right on that doorstep. So the guys who they chose originally when they did that expansion draft was clearly the right guys. Whoever they had take that position clearly knew what he was doing when he was building a franchise, as he did it basically in 1 year, and they've been relevant ever since then. So it's really interesting too, and that's one thing that I didn't bring up, even like with the trade deadline, with Seattle coming into the league next season. There's going to another expansion draft, so guys are protected / guys are getting released. I really wonder if some of these teams who are holding on to some guys that they kind of don't want, maybe that's their chance to unload them for free, like without having to like do any deals or losing any money, do none of that, just take them. But yeah, those are my two dark horses, Vegas and
Florida.
I mean, the Blackhawks, as much as I hate them, they've been right there too. They've been battling. I've watched a handful of their games. Minnesota Wild has been surprising, as they've done as well as they've done so far. Yeah, it's the season's really getting close to the end, but I just would like to see anybody but Tampa win it again. It's always nice to see somebody else get to win the cup. Like, I'd love to see Toronto win the Stanley Cup. As much as everybody kind of like hates Toronto in the NHL, I'd really love to see them win it. Like, the young guys that they have on their team, especially Austin Matthews, who's on pace to be the greatest American-born player to ever play the game. Like, give him a cup. Let him start cementing his dynasty now. Like, why wait? Kid in his first game, he had 4 goals. Like, he's unreal. So you'd like to see the good players do well, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Crosby too. Like, you'd love to see him win another one. Ovechkin, you'd love to see him win. Like, I'm just so torn, especially with being a diehard hockey fan since I can remember being able to walk, seeing the last lingering guys who have made it from when I was a little kid to are still now. It's like you want to see them continue to win cups and continue to do good just for the sake of the league. But yeah, it's really cool to see with all these new young kids coming in. I hope Cole Caulfield gets a shot for playing for Montreal this season, as they're right there. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Yeah. That's all I had for today as well. Great or lot of stuff unpacked today. So look forward to tomorrow, and again, keep an eye out for another interview dropping this week. If you haven't already, go check out the one that just dropped this morning with Tony Lamontia, one of Austin's friends from back in the day when he was in Yorkville and played some college ball. So go check out that episode, and yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, have a great rest of your Tuesday, everyone, and we will see you on Hump Day.